Good morning, everyone. The big topic for today is what is going on in Israel these days. Everybody's been, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have been talking about it on the news, giving their own opinion of what's going on. As many of you know, I was raised a very proud Muslim Palestinian, and so I try to keep up as much as possible on what's going on in the Middle East. One of the things that we've been hearing in the media is that there were peaceful protests in Jerusalem and that the Israelis instigated clashes, and they took over Masjid al-Aqsa, or Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of the holiest sites in Islam. And this was instigating the Muslims to riot and to protest. So here's some of the problems with this theory, which it's not a theory, it's outrageous lies. I'm going to stop right now so I can talk to you guys. Alright, first of all, we are in the month of Ramadan, okay? And during the month of Ramadan, which by the way only came about to commemorate Muhammad's battles and his killing Jews and Christians and specifically people from Quraysh who were polytheists, they were pagan. So during the month of Ramadan, if you commit a good act, you get 7 to 1,000 times the reward, basically depending on what flavor of Islam you follow. The point is, the Quran, which is the literal word of Allah, given to Muhammad through Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, tells Muslims several times to kill the non-believers, to kill the Jews, slaughter them where you find them, all of these things. Alright? And so when a Muslim kills a Jew or dies in the process of carrying out an act of jihad, they will get 7 up to 1,000 times higher reward than what they're already promised. What are they promised? The 72 virgins, all of your sins are forgiven, nothing can be held against you, you get to bring in some of your family into paradise, even if they were destined for hell. So, it is no surprise that these things are happening during Ramadan. You can look it up. Don't ever take my word. Look it up, look at the facts. Terrorist attacks carried out by Muslims spike throughout the month of Ramadan all over the world. Somebody told me that the Jews were instigating the Muslims because apparently they turned off some of the speakers of the mosques with the call to prayers and the prayers for Ramadan, while the Jews were mourning the dead that they had over the weekend. Well, here's the thing. All over the world, during Ramadan and outside of Ramadan, but especially during Ramadan, Muslims, when they're praying, they pray against the Jews. They pray that God strikes them. They pray that they are able to take them out of the land. So if you were mourning a loved one, would you really want to hear somebody else praying against your loved ones? Praying against you? No. I don't know if this happened or not, but it seems pretty, basic human decency to turn off these speakers. Next, they're saying that the Muslim Palestinians were just praying in Al-Aqsa Mosque. They're just praying in there. And then the Israelis raided into the mosque and killed everybody. And they show footage of this. First of all, Al-Aqsa Mosque is massive. It's massive. So just because people were praying in this one itty bitty little tiny room, it doesn't mean that that's what was going on in the entire space. Then they said, after these things, the Jews barricaded around Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay, well, what about the Palestinians that had rocks? There's footage of this by Al-Aqsa Mosque and inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they are throwing them at the Jews and throwing them at the Israeli police and the Israeli forces. Why would they barricade them after they had done that. And if they were barricaded, how did they bring in the rocks? They wouldn't have been able to do that. So the only common sense thing is that the Palestinians brought in the rocks, attacked the Israelis, and the Israelis, of course, retaliated. This is not new. This is not some kind of new tactic that they've come up with. This is all old news. You can watch the first Intifada, the second Intifada, and this is apparently turning out to be a third Intifada. They're running around saying that the Arabs in a village are being evicted. They cannot stay there. They're ethnically cleansing this village of Arabs. This is why this is funny. This village is majority Arabs, all right? And they're only evicting like 4 or 5 or 6 houses because they didn't pay their rent. It's just really that simple. And some people are going to say, oh, well, the UN is condemning this. I don't give a rat's toot what the UN is saying. This is the same UN who just, I think, last year said that the Jews have no claim to the Temple Mount. I don't care. I don't care, because the media and the UN will do everything they possibly can to condemn Israel. Even though Israel has, just factually, if you look at what they've done, they try their very, very best not to hit civilians, not to retaliate, to calm things down. That's just what they do. What else are they talking about? Oh, some 16-year-old got killed by some 16-year-old child got killed by the Israelis. You forfeit your right to be a child when you start carrying out terrorist attacks. And you have to keep in mind that what we consider a child here is not a child there. Okay? They don't have teenagers that are rebelling and acting a fool like we have over here. Their teenagers are well trained. Since birth, they have been taught to kill the Jews. They have been taught to go out on terrorist attacks. Not only that, but Hamas and Fatah and the Palestinian authorities, who have not had an election in, like, I don't know, is it 20, 25 years they haven't had an election? They do the pay to slay, okay? If you kill a Jew or you carry out a terrorist attack and you die or you get captured, your family will get paid monthly for the rest of their lives. Now, don't forget that just yesterday, Hamas shot anywhere between 100 and 250 rockets, depending on who is reporting, into Israel. Let me ask you this. Where did those rockets come from? If the Palestinians are poor, and they don't have any money, they can't even fend for themselves, rockets aren't cheap. Where did they come from? And finally, my final point. One of the arguments that the left is putting out now that I've heard on, maybe it was CNN, I don't know, don't quote me on this. And they said, why? Think about it for yourself. Why would the Muslims start a terrorist attack from the mosque? This is a holy place for them. They wouldn't do this to their holy place. You're an ignorant person. And ignorance is not an excuse, especially today. You can do 5 minutes of research online and you'll be able to see what's going on. There is no site that is too holy for Muslims to carry out terrorist attacks from. Every time you hear on the news that Israel bombed a Palestinian hospital, Israel bombed a Palestinian school, do you know why that happens? It's because Fatah, Hamas, the Muslim jihadis, use these sites to launch terrorist attacks into Israel. And usually it is several rockets in before Israel retaliates. And you can watch the video and the footage of Israeli retaliation. They target the militant wing. They try their very best not to hit civilians. And they have done this their entire lives. When I was a kid, I watched on the Arab news in the Middle East about this shaheed. Okay, a shaheed is a martyr for Islam. And it was one of the Hamas guys, I believe. And he had gotten into his car, and the Israelis dropped a bomb, I guess, and it only blew up his car. Everybody around was okay. It only killed him. I'm 33 years old. I watched this when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So this has been years of Israel trying not to hit and hurt Palestinian civilians. And just by the way, for the people that say that Jews are aggressors for being anywhere around Al-Aqsa Mosque, Muslims built the Aqsa Mosque around the 8th century on top of the Temple Mount, which is the holiest site for Jews. This is pretty normal behavior for Muslims. They do a terrible thing, like building a site for them on top of the Temple Mount, and then they cry aggressors. They don't want Christians to go to a mosque called Hagia Sophia in Turkey. Now, if you know anything about Christianity, actually you may not know this, because I just recently learned about Hagia Sophia. This is something that the early Christians called the wisdom of God. Okay, it translated, it's like the holy wisdom. So the wisdom of God is Hagia Sophia. And it was a church called Hagia Sophia. The Muslims took it over and turned it into a mosque, like they did many churches around the world. And now they're claiming that the Christians are going to profane the place because this is a holy Muslim site, and how could you possibly get on it? If you want something funny to watch, funny but horribly sad today, just Google Pallywood. Pallywood. P-A-L-L-Y-O-O-D. You will see a ton of videos and footage showing Palestinians faking dead people. As a Muslim Palestinian, well, as I was raised a Muslim Palestinian, I'm no longer a Muslim Palestinian, I can tell you that we were raised that everybody fi dal blad, which means everyone for the sake of the land. They specifically breed to have fighters to kill Jews. Specifically. Golda Meir said something. She said that, and I'm probably paraphrasing here, there will be no peace until Palestinians love their children more than they hate Jews. No greater words of wisdom have been spoken. No greater words of wisdom. So, before you go on just parroting the mainstream media, do some research, look into the facts, read up on some history, and understand, as somebody who was raised a Palestinian Muslim, the best solution for the area is a one-state solution. It is for it all to become Israel. All of it. Why? Because under Palestinian rule, the Palestinian authorities, aka Hamas and Fatah, terrorist organizations, take the money that is designated for Palestinians. Palestinians get millions and millions and millions of dollars every year from the UN and from everybody else. They take that money and they build terrorist tunnels to get to Israel. They take that money and they buy rockets. They take that money and do pay to slay. All right? Meanwhile, your civilian Palestinians are not living a dignified life at all. At all. They have crappy hospitals, crappy schools that, by the way, only push jihad, and they have crappy living conditions. Women have no rights whatsoever. They're often used as human shields for the jihadi fighters. Children have no rights. You can, again, Google this. You can find their kindergarten graduations and they have their little 4 and 5 year olds going on with little toy rifles killing Jews. That's their kindergarten graduation. I mean, that's child abuse. That's spiritual abuse. That's an atrocity. That's why you have 16-year-olds attacking. Gay people get thrown off of buildings under Hamas. And I'm not even going to start to touch the drug use that they push. Israel is the only country in the Middle East where women have rights, where homosexuals have rights, the LGBTQ community has rights. Israel is the only place where you have, for example, the Arabs of 48. They are the Palestinians that accepted Israel's offer of, hey, why don't you become Israelis? This is 1948. We'll give you full citizenship, you'll have full rights, and you can live in Israel. They accepted it. In the Middle East, they're known as the Arab 48, which means the Arabs of 48. They live good lifestyles. They have all of their rights. And as a matter of fact, I have seen numerous of their sons, numerous men, join the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And they're Muslims. Absolutely, they're Muslims. And when there are interviews that are done with them, because they're traitors, they say the simple fact, which is 100% true, it is a fact. The Quran says, the Quran is the literal word of Allah. The Quran says this land belongs to the Israelis. 100%. There is not one place in the Quran that claims that this land is for the Muslims. It only says one thing. It was given to the Israelis. So don't go around just, repeating the vomit that's on mainstream media. All right? Have a shred of decency. Do some research. And for goodness sake, if you care about Palestinian rights, you care about them having clean water and good schools, support Israel. That's really all there is to it. Right, baby? I know. Have a good day.